views expressed on this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of this station, its management, or other advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.
Moms, are you raising your kids to believe they can create the life of their dreams? Are you living your life that way as well? Living an awakened life means more than just talking about it. Join host Debbie Pokornik on Vibrant, Powerful Moms as she shares practical tips, stories, and interviews with enlightened guests, all geared at helping you create and live an extraordinary life. It's time to stand firmly in your power and model the life you want for your kids to inherit. And it all begins now on Transformation Talk Radio.
Welcome to the Vibrant Powerful Mom Show. I'm your host, Debbie Pokornik, and my mission is to help you tune into all aspects of your vibrant, powerful self so that you can fully enjoy the life you've come here to live at work, at home, and at play. I am absolutely honored to have an incredible woman by the name of Jean Hainer on the line with me today. I've listened to Jean be interviewed on other shows for quite a few years now, and every time I hear her speak, I'm always amazed by her knowledge and talents. But even more than that, there's something about her voice that just pulls me in and is just very soothing to my soul. So suffice it to say, having the opportunity to interview Jean myself feels both a little surreal and super special. So Jean is here to talk to us about Chinese face reading, which is an ancient branch of Chinese medicine that diagnoses your personality to help reveal your natural strengths. It suggests what you need in relationships, which careers are a good match, and how you can be your best authentic self. In case you're not familiar with Jean, let me tell you just a little bit about who she is. Jean Hainer is the author of The Wisdom of Your Face, as well as The Wisdom of Your Child's Face, which is the book I'm going to be referring to the most today, and Your Hidden Symmetry. She teaches compassionate and affirming ways to understand your true nature and to find love for everyone in your life, including that reflection in the mirror. Jean teaches workshops and does private consultations and is well known for providing fascinating and practical information that can be put to immediate use in your life. Jean, welcome to the Vibrant Powerful Mom Show.
Debbie, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Oh, I am just thrilled to have you here. So I always like to start by asking people to share just a little bit about themselves as it relates to our show here today. So could you just tell us if you're a mom and maybe how you got into this line of work, just a little bit about that?
Sure, yeah, I definitely am a mom. I have a beautiful son who's now 32 years old, but so I can relate to everything all the other moms are going through here. I married into a Chinese family when I was in my 20s. And it was a traditional Chinese family from China. My mother-in-law barely spoke English. She was very tolerant with me and patient because I had to learn what it meant to be a Chinese daughter-in-law, which is very different than in North America to be a regular daughter-in-law.
Absolutely.
And it was quite an experience. And I benefited hugely in many ways. She taught me a lot about Chinese medicine. She taught me feng shui. She taught me many things. And she tried to teach me Chinese face reading, which I completely rejected because I thought, well, this is horrible. Judging someone based on their appearance, that's like a terrible thing to do. So I had to basically ignore the fact that she was always right about people. It took me a couple of years to come back around to it. And what I discovered was that it's actually the opposite of judgment. It actually allows you to see who someone truly is inside, to feel compassion for them, to understand and accept them, that it's such an amazing tool in everyday life that whoever you interact with, you can know how to communicate with them well. You can even know how close to stand to them. You can understand what words to say to them. And certainly as a mother, from the birth of my child, I was able to discern things about his personality or why he was behaving the way that he was that prevented me from getting confused or upset or creating misunderstandings. So I bless my mother-in-law every day and wish I'd listened to her earlier.
Well, sometimes we need to take that bit of time to just
Yeah.
really understand that they get it. They're telling us something important.
Yeah.
So I actually, in line with what you just said, I love your story at the beginning of the book when you talk about searching your newborn's face for messages, and you notice his full mouth and you share what that means, and his ears, you're relieved that they're not sticking out. So can you maybe share for our listeners what those things mean? Or
Yeah. Well, and let me preface this a little bit because, of course, yes, you can read a newborn's face, but of course their face is not done yet. It's not cooked. In other words, it's not fully developed yet as a newborn. And in fact, throughout all the stages of childhood, your child's face is still developing. The face actually isn't complete until about the mid-20s, but you read what's there every step of the way. It's not that you shouldn't read it. You can understand who your child is at this phase of their life by reading their features. And so, for instance, one of the things that the mouth represents is how we are in relationships, how much we want, how giving and kind and caring we are, how compassionate we can be, how well we speak the language of relationships. And so that's why I was happy to see my son's lips, that it showed that he had an extra kind of talent, a natural ability in relationships. And that certainly has been obvious playing out all through his life, and even now as an adult. He, the first place he steps into with anyone is, how can I help you? What do you need? A very kind and giving person.
right.
When I looked at his ears, well, here's the thing. There are no bad features. So, if your child's ears stick out, it doesn't mean anything bad, but it tells you about something about them. When I saw that my son's ears didn't stick out, I was a bit relieved, because that ears that stick out show a bit of a nonconformist, someone who won't always do what you tell them to do, who has a mind of their own. And a parent raising a child with sticking out ears, defined as being willful and independent, that can be a little bit difficult. But as an adult, oh my goodness, someone with ears that stick out, they're going to think for themselves. They're not just going to do what someone else tells them to do because they told them. This is a very good quality, but the parent raising the child with ears that stick out sometimes can have a few bumps in the road, because that child won't necessarily do what you want them to do.
Right. But, that's such an important comment to make, because it makes you realize that, okay, yes, I have a child right now who is pushing my buttons and testing the waters all the time.
Mm-hmm.
How do I help them learn how to make good choices, rather than try to control them?
That's beautiful. What a great insight. And that's very true. One of the things that I respect most about Chinese medicine in this category is that it teaches that every personal characteristic comes as a package deal. In other words, It has two sides. On one side, we'll find many benefits, talents, natural strengths, but there's also always a downside. And we often, when we encounter the downside of one of our child's characteristics, our first response may be, well, we have to eradicate that. We've got to nip this in the bud. But, if we eradicated the downside, we'd lose all the benefits. It's woven together. So you're right. It's more about helping and guiding your child to manage whatever the downside is. For a child with sticking out ears, to be able to learn to recognize when it's okay to be willful and independent and think for yourself, and when maybe, maybe the best decision here is to follow the rules or do what I'm meant to do.
Right. Teaching them how to think, not what to think.
Oh, gorgeous. Yes.
And that's Barbara Colarosa's line. That's not mine. I can't take credit for it, but I love it. And I used it all the time with my children.
Excellent. And, all parents should be remembering that. We should write that in lipstick on the mirror every day.
So there are just so many directions we can take this in. I thought maybe we'll just touch a little bit on how you can use face reading to improve, our relationships, that kind of thing. And then we'll go deeper into using it with our children.
Great. Yeah, absolutely. And, I love that you brought up the issue of relationships, because it's one thing to, for instance, read your own face and get a deeper understanding of who you are and why. And there's many layers of information there. But then the next step is to look at the face of the person you're in relationship with and understand more about the dynamics between you. You can read your own face to see more about who you are. You can read your partner's face, for instance, to understand more about who they are. And then you can create more common ground. Then you don't get so lost in reaction. I can share a little story about a relationship issue if you want between a couple.
Oh, I would love it. Sure.
Okay. Well, so one of the, every feature on your face has many messages about who you are. One of the features is the eyebrows that tells us many, many things about who we are. Someone with very naturally strong eyebrows is someone who usually needs to be very physically active. That's one of their many qualities that tells about them. And so I was doing a reading for a couple. It's often like couples counseling when I do readings. It's like I'm saying, no, she didn't mean it that way. What she really meant was, So the husband had very, very bushy eyebrows. And boy, oh boy, did he have a strong exercise schedule. It was, 2 hours in the morning and an hour at night at least, and another workout if he could squeeze it in. That he was very, very active, but people with bushy eyebrows tend to have a lot of inner tension. They need an outlet to get it out. That's why they like to be active. So that was actually maybe a little bit overboard for him, but pretty good for him. Right. People with bushy eyebrows, especially men, sometimes have trouble with feelings of frustration or even anger. They can access those feelings more easily. They come up when they get stressed. That's right where they go, is to get angry. And they tend to be very sensitive to criticism. In fact, they will often perceive a statement as criticism, even when it wasn't intended to be criticism at all. Mm-hmm. Well, so his wife did not have bushy eyebrows. She was a different personality type, and that's fine. It's not that you have to be the same personality type to have a successful relationship at all. It's just about understanding and acceptance of who each person is. But she was a personality type who was someone who was a bit perfectionistic. So for her, everything needed to be just so, and she was very detail oriented. And so, if he forgot to do something, she'd be right on him to remind him. She didn't even realize she was coming across as critical. It was just, it made her uncomfortable. This type of personality, they're the ones who walk into the room and they're the ones who immediately spot the picture is crooked half an inch on the wall, or there's a smudge on the window or a spot on the rug. They notice things other people don't notice.
Right.
She was always trying to be helpful with him, to give him little reminders about the household chores that he needed to do. So, when it was garbage day and the garbage cans had to be pulled out to the curb, she would remind him. And one reason she reminded him is that last year, one time he forgot.
That one time. Always
yeah, that one time. Yeah. And she was an anxious person. This is what her personality type was about. When you're perfectionistic, often you have struggles with anxiety, just like her husband had struggles with frustration and anger. So every Thursday night, she would remind him, honey, don't forget, you need to take the garbage out tonight. Well, whenever she said that, he didn't hear it as a helpful reminder. He felt it was emasculating. He felt as if she was saying to him, you're so stupid, you can't even remember to take out the garbage. And she didn't mean it that way at all. She was speaking out of her anxiety because, oh my God, last year he did forget, so he might forget again. So every time she reminded him, he would blast her. He would get so angry. And then, the relationship goes off the rails for the next few days. She's feeling hurt. She was only trying to help. He feels like she's always on him like a mother. And there we have a dynamic here that can spiral out and ripple out and affect other aspects of their relationship. And when you can translate the intention of the other person, she didn't understand why that made him so angry. He didn't understand why she kept saying it. When they came to a new understanding, it completely took all the tension out of the situation. It diffused it, and it really improved their relationship on so many levels.
That is really neat to think about. Now, I have to know, so were her eyebrows then more like smaller and defined, which women tend to pluck them anyway to be that way?
Well, I have two answers to that.
Okay.
So first, let's talk about eyebrows. So you make a very good point here. You know, in our culture, there are so-called standards of beauty about eyebrows, for instance, that seem to change every several years. So, you know, some decades, you know, pencil thin eyebrows are considered beautiful, and then it flips, and then stronger eyebrows are considered beautiful. Here's some of the messages of your eyebrows. If you have naturally strong eyebrows, if you didn't pluck them at all and they were nice and thick and bushy, what that says about you is that you have a good level of self-confidence, assertiveness, you have good boundaries, you won't let people take advantage of you, for instance. You have an excellent ability to think clearly and make good decisions. And in that process, you can figure out what you want in life and how to go for it, how to achieve your goals. Now, if you have naturally strong eyebrows and all of a sudden the standards of beauty in our culture change and you're feeling the pressure to get your eyebrows plucked or tweezed or waxed or threaded or whatever, you make them into pencil thin lines. What Chinese face reading would say is, if you reduce the strength of your eyebrows, you reduce the strength of your self-confidence, assertiveness, decisiveness, all those things that I described. I cannot tell you how many women I've worked with who have plucked their eyebrows too severely and ended up in an abusive relationship because they've weakened their boundaries, they've weakened their assertiveness.
Wow.
So what Chinese face reading says is the eyebrows you're born with, try to keep them as natural as possible. Now, this doesn't mean everybody should have thick eyebrows, only if you were born with them. If you have naturally sparse or thin eyebrows, there's nothing wrong with you, and we will find your strengths in other features of the face. Naturally sparse eyebrows does show a potential for lower self-confidence, but that is just one aspect of who you are.
Right.
Perhaps you have a strong chin or a large nose. These also supply strengths. And that's my second answer, is in order to understand someone, you don't just look at one feature on their face, you look at all of them. It's kind of like putting a jigsaw puzzle together where, one your eyebrows are one piece and your mouth is another and your nose is another, and gradually the total picture is forming.
Nice. I'm thinking about that because there's so many pieces involved in it. Like, for example, right away I started thinking about, so when a person goes through chemotherapy and loses their hair, often their eyebrows grow too, and they can be feeling so vulnerable, which they can totally relate to what they're going through, but could also be in part because their eyebrows have disappeared.
Oh, that's such a beautiful point. And the beauty also of this work is that if someone is going through something like that, at least women, more than men is acceptable in our culture these days, women can use makeup to draw their eyebrows back in. And it's often true, even for women who, they pluck their eyebrows early in life and they stopped growing back. It's very common.
Right.
I've seen when women start to use makeup to draw their eyebrows back in again, they regain confidence. And down the road, their eyebrows often start growing back even when they haven't had any in years. It's a two-way street. As you start feeling more confident, your face will change. The eyebrows can grow back.
Wow. That is so fascinating. So fascinating. So I love that earlier on you mentioned that the age of our child's face matters, because obviously, at 5 years old, they're going to look different than at when they're going through puberty
Right, yeah.
and when they get into their 20s. So you're saying that even as an adult, your face is continuing to change. And I suppose even if you lose weight, let's say at one point in your life, if you carried a fair amount of weight with you, it's possible that your face was very full, cherub-like, right? And as you lose weight, your face will change. And that's going to completely change you as a person.
Well, interestingly, that's not so. That yes, of course, if you gain weight or lose weight, it will alter how full your face is, for instance. But there are patterns in the features, and so a person's face, in terms of face reading, will give the exact same information, whether they're overweight, underweight. You'll still be able to read it once you know what to look for. It's actually very easy to do. There are certain features that you pay attention to. But,
I've heard you say that many, many times. And I have to say, as I've been reading your book, The Wisdom of Your Face, I'm sitting there, I've got my cell phone in one hand with profiles of myself, these different pictures.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at the book, I'm looking at that, and I'm looking over at my husband. Typically he's driving the car and he'll go, "Are you analyzing me again?"
Right. Oh, so many husbands I know that they wish I'd never written any books because their partner's going, oh my God, so that's why he is the way he is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I always say the hardest face to read is your own, that I suggest you practice on other people because you're just too close. You
Right.
can't be objective about what you look like. You look at, you'll feel like, oh, I've always had such a big nose. And if you ask somebody else, they'd say, well, you don't have a big nose, but then, you're thinking you do, and you can't read the information right. So yeah,
Right.
Practicing on your partner, anybody else in your life, that's the best way to learn.
Okay, I'm going to tell him that. I have to practice on him.
Right, yeah, it's homework. It's homework, honey.
So going back to that, when you're looking at your child's face, now let's say in the book it's talking about their ears sticking out or their ears being big or whatever, what should they relate that to? I mean, do you want to look at your siblings? Do you want to, how should they compare when they're thinking about size of nose, size of everything?
Yeah. Well, a few things about that. Sometimes I'll give lectures and someone will, drag their very left-brained husband to the, to the lecture, and he's sitting there with his arms folded and scowling. And at some point he'll raise his hand and say, this is baloney. I have this nose because my father had this nose. It's just genetics. It's in my DNA. This is a bunch of junk. And I will completely agree with him. I will say, you are absolutely right. Of course you have this kind of nose because your father had that kind of nose. There's no conflict here. There's no contradiction. The fact is that this is extra information, that you also have the personality characteristics associated with that nose. And so what you might say, oh yeah, you're just like your father because you do this way. Well, we can read that in the nose, for instance. With your child, parents often say, oh my God, every kid is different. How can this be? They come from the same parents, but totally different personalities. And you will be able to see in the features of their face why. For instance, in terms of reading a child's face and their age, often, as puberty kicks in, for boys especially, the testosterone changes their faces. In the jaw and in the brow bone, testosterone makes men's jaws larger, brow bones tend to be more prominent than in girls. But this relates to personality characteristics too. If your pubescent son is developing a stronger brow bone, a stronger jaw, this talks about a bit of a rebellious nature, someone who will challenge authority, someone who doesn't necessarily want to follow the rules. This is appropriate for them. These are benefits in their adult life, and you may have to choose your battles with them. They'll be a little bit more argumentative with you, for instance.
Right.
Things like that.
Oh gosh, I would love to ask you questions about transgender and such, because I think it ties into here, and I happen to have a transgender son. However, what I want to do right now is I want to tell people how they can find out more about you, so they for sure know how to do that. And if we have a moment left at the end, we will tackle another question. So if you want to find out more about Jean, please head on over to her website, which is jeanhaner.com. So that's JeanHaner.com. And as usual, that will be posted on the vibrantpowerfulmoms.com site if you prefer to just click on the link. Now, when you get to Jean's site, you're going to find that there's some online courses there that will teach you how to do face readings. She does private readings. You'll also find her 2020 predictions there. And I just have to say, I have been enjoying those immensely. I did my own, then I had to do my husband's, then I had to do my sister's, then I did my friend's. And I have just been having a lot of fun with those. So this is January right now. If you are interested, I strongly suggest you check out the predictions. You will also find the books there. So the Wisdom of Your Face and the Wisdom of Your Child's Face book, and all of those books are there. You can take a peek. She has an incredible amount of things that she offers. So I really hope that you will head over there and check it out. Jean, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Oh, Debbie, well, thank you so much. Yes, I would invite people to visit the site and check out the blog and other places there, because there's a lot of free information there as well. And, in terms of the mothers out there listening, or the parents out there listening, as much as it's important to learn to read your child's face, I always recommend, what about that reflection in your own mirror and understanding who you are as a mother or a father? What is your parenting style and how you can make it a better fit for your child's unique personality? There are no wrong features. There are no wrong relationships. Any combination can work as long as it's based, as I said, on understanding and acceptance of who that other person is.
Once again, it always comes back to self-awareness, to arming yourself with information that can help make your life so more joyful.
Right.
Yeah. Jean, thank you so much for coming on the Vibrant Powerful Mom Show and sharing both your time and your wisdom with us. I really, truly love what you're sharing with the world, and I just want you to know how much I appreciate you and all that you do.
Debbie, I'm honored. Thank you so much, and sending love and compassion to everybody else out there.
Yes, awesome. All right, so I hope people will head over to the site, check out the books. They're life-changing, and you will never look at a face the same again because honestly, it just changes everything. And what you think you know, turns out that we don't always know. So thank you again, Jean, and a big thank you to you, my listeners. I so appreciate you. With much respect for you and the journey you are on, this is Debbie Pokornik and her guest, Jean Hainer, wishing you a vibrant and powerful day.
You've been listening to Vibrant Powerful Moms with host Debbie Pokornik. If you've enjoyed this show, please share it with others to help spread the love. To find out more about Debbie, pick up free offers from the show, and listen to previous episodes, visit vibrantpowerfulmoms.com.